Hello and welcome to our new video. In this video, we will discuss about the adverse media or negative media. We will see what it is. We will also discuss the uses of adverse media or negative media in this video, and we will also discuss the importance of adverse media in the anti-money laundering compliance. So let's start this video and explore what is adverse media. First of all, we need to understand the term the adverse media. Adverse media, which is also known as the negative media, or any kind of information that is found as damaging for any specific individual or group of individuals, business or businesses, institution or institutions, organizations, or entities. We know that the financial institutions such as banks are required to perform appropriate customer due diligence measures and know your customer measures at the time of onboarding a new client or new customer, and checking the adverse media is part of the AML compliance or the customer due diligence measures. So adverse media is any negative or damaging information that may be found by the financial institutions related to any particular individual or group of individuals, any particular business or business sector or specific business or the group of businesses owned by any specific individual or group of individuals, similarly institutions, organizations and entities. So let's move on to the next part. What are different sources of negative or adverse media? By sources, we mean from where the financial institutions or compliance specialists found the negative or adverse media for any particular individual, company, institution, or business. So, negative or adverse media is basically the public information, and through appropriate searches on the internet or the available media portals, the negative or adverse media items may be found for any specific individual, entity, or business. So there are different sources, like for example, news portals or news item. We know that there are different news websites that are reliable and that publish reliable information for the people or organizations or institutions. So they may cover the negative media or negative news items for any specific individual or group of individuals or institutions. Therefore, news portals or news items are considered as one of the sources of negative or adverse media. Similarly, social media channels like Facebook or like Twitter or other social websites may also be the sources of negative or adverse media, because usually negative media items are shared on social media against any particular individual or businesses or entities or organizations. But here the care must be taken to ensure that the news or negative item shared um, should be reliable and should not be the spam against any specific individual or entity. Similarly, regulatory filings and court records, if available, may also be used as sources of negative or adverse media against any particular individual or group of individuals. By regulatory filings, we mean that there are various complaints that are being lodged by the public to the regulatory authorities, and the data might be the public data. So that source may also be used to check any specific negative or adverse media item or news against any particular individual. Similarly, there are other open sources available in the market. Institutions subscribe those portals and sources and pay subscription fees, and those institutions uh, publish specific, or you can say the more relevant negative or adverse media news items for any particular individual or business. So these are the broader sources of negative or adverse media. There might be other sources as well, but these are generally used. Similarly, you can also include the Google search here, and performing the general Google search using the relevant appropriate keywords like the name of the person against whom any particular negative or adverse media is being sought may be searched on the Google, and when the Google displays the results in front of you so you can check any specific negative or adverse media for any particular individual or business or entity that you are interested in to know about. Now let's move on to what basically negative or adverse media includes. It includes information related to corruption or the fraud committed by an individual or group of individuals, fraud committed by any institution or business or entity. And when we talk about the fraud, we also mean the cryptocurrency frauds. So cryptocurrency related frauds are also included in the fraudulent activities or fraud related news items. Then we have the terrorism financing related news, then money laundering, including the cryptocurrency money laundering, human or drug trafficking, illegal trading activities, etc. So all these items are to be traced when any specific financial institution is performing negative or adverse media for any specific individual, its customer, or its vendor, etc. So these are the broader sources. These are the broader components of the adverse media items that may be found by the specific financial institution during the searches. Now, in the last, let's discuss what are the uses of negative adverse media in the anti-money laundering compliance. We know that AML compliance is mandatory for the financial institutions to ensure that money laundering and terrorist financing risks are avoided and criminals should not be onboarded by the institutions. So, negative or adverse media items are used to identify potential money laundering risk or terrorist financing risk and threats at the time of onboarding any individual customer or the business customer or entities. Like for example, when any individual comes to the bank to open the account, then the financial institution may perform negative news searches against that particular individual, and similar is the case with the businesses and entities. Further, negative or adverse media uh, are used to screen the clients and vendors or partners for potential money laundering and terrorist financing risk. Financial institutions not only onboard customers for deposit purposes or for doing business purposes, but there are also different kind of vendors from whom the financial institutions take different kinds of services. Like for example, technology providers, cloud service providers, or you can say the vendors providing any specific software or application to the financial institutions. Then before onboarding and taking services from those vendors, financial institutions must perform the negative or adverse media for those vendors or business partners. For business partners, we mean like for example any payment gateway that are working together with the banking industry, and when the banks are going to enter in the partnership arrangement with the payment gateway service providers, then the payment service gateway should be screened appropriately, and the negative or adverse media searches should be performed for that particular partner. Negative or adverse media items are also used to assess the reputational risk for the clients, business partners, or vendors, because if any specific negative media news is available on the internet, or you can say if the negative media news is public news, then the reputational risk arises here. So, in that case, the reputational risk will be considered as a significant risk, and the institutions should not enter into any business relationship with that particular client, business partner, or vendor, and should take appropriate measures to avoid money laundering or terrorist financing or other different fraudulent types of risks. Here, I want to request you to subscribe this channel because we are uploading GRC related conceptual videos, and if you want to be the part of this community, then please subscribe this channel and press the bell icon button to get the notification of the future videos on timely basis, and this will be a great support to this channel. And finally, let's complete this video lecture here. So the one of the uses of negative or adverse media in anti-money laundering compliance is to ensure that financial institutions are not associated with any individual entity or group of entities that are involved in unethical or illegal business activities or practices. So these were the broader four areas that we discussed in this video. Number one, we discussed what is adverse media. Then we discussed the sources of adverse media. Then we discussed what adverse or negative media includes. And finally, we discussed what are the uses of adverse media. So in the end, I would request again to please subscribe this channel and press the bell icon button for regular videos notification, because we are publishing the conceptual videos on a regular basis, and we are trying to provide you the in-depth knowledge of the key terminologies that are used in the regulatory compliance and enterprise risk management domain. So thank you for watching this video.